again to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, the podcast where the love for the high iron meets the precision of the scale model. Whether you're tracking the latest Class 1 freight movements or perfecting the scenery on your home layout, we're here to celebrate the history and hobby of railroading. Climb aboard and settle in as we clear the signals for another journey through the world of trains.
Hello, Iron City folks, and welcome to another episode of the Roundhouse Report. This time we have a collection of folks who model steel mills. Basically, that's the theme for tonight, is steel mill modeling. It's one of the more fascinating industries, in my opinion anyway, to model. And we get into some of the facets of that in this podcast. So hope everybody's looking forward to that. But before we get into that, as usual, we have our Roundhouse Report segment here. And Pat and I are here together in the studio for that. So, Pat, are you ready to kick off the Roundhouse Report, or is there any other housekeeping stuff you need to take care of before we get into that?
Hey, Brad. Hey, good evening, everybody. Brad, we have a great show tonight. You know, this topic is so broad. I think we might have a couple of episodes out of this, or maybe a follow-up episode. The
scope of the steel industry and modeling the steel industry is very broad, and it's deep and broad both. So yeah, it is. There's a lot of material to be talked about for sure.
I think we have some great modelers that have done a great job. I know I have a steel mill on it's called the Iron City Steelworks, and you just don't realize the amount of space that takes. I have 1/4 of my layout just dedicated to that one industry, and it's not enough. I should really, if I wanted to do it right, it would have been the whole layout. But we're trying to get some other things in there. You got to have some customers too. And we talk about all that, the customers, the raw materials. Some of these guys, you might want to get out your rulers and your follow-along booklets, because I think at one part of our show, Brad, we even talk about how they make the steel and additives and acid, and pickling, and you name it, Brad. We're talking about it tonight, so I think everyone's going to enjoy this show.
Yeah, and that's kind of an important connection to me. I mean, it doesn't really directly impact the modeling of it, but it's always good to have the reason why. You know, we need this model to accurately represent this industry. And in order to do that, you need to have at least a cursory working knowledge of what is going on in the different types of mills to produce steel. And that way it makes more sense when you start trying to model it. You know, if you know how the process works, you know how to arrange the different components of whatever type of steel mill you're trying to model. And there are different types, and that's one of the things that I'm sure will be brought to light in this episode. And like you mentioned, Pat, it may end up being multiple episodes before we're done with this. We're just as we usually do, we're just going to see how the flow goes, and if we get to everything in one episode, fine. If we don't, these guys, I'm sure, will all be willing to come back for another follow-up on this. So yeah, this is something to really look forward to, I think. So I'm ready to roll, if you will.
Yeah, so Brad, two things I wanted to do. One was tell everybody thanks for a great virtual weekend. We do those 3 times in the summer, once in June, once in July, and once in August. A lot of modelers are not modeling. They're out doing the summer things. But we always like to just try to bring everyone back once a month, do some virtual modeling, show off kind of your wares or the themes that we had. Last June was Caboose month. And man, we saw some great photos, and a lot of people shared their collection of, prototypes or models but it was really nice to see those. And I hope everybody enjoyed that weekend. Just kind of brings everyone back to the hobby over the summer, at least one weekend.
Yeah.
And the other one was we weren't able to have one of the best steel mill modelers I've ever met, Bob O'Neill, out in Seattle. He is originally from Pittsburgh, and he does the homestead modeling. And man, what a model. I used Bob as a reference and kind of used him as Bob O'Neill is his name, as a cheat sheet. So when I went through this tonight, I kind of had I was looking at his notes, like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. So Thank you, Bob, for helping us out. Bob is on the page. If you've ever seen his mill or his backstory, take a look. It's an HO layout. It is fantastic.
Yeah, his is one of the only layouts I think I've ever seen in any scale that actually, I mean, about as completely and accurately as you can models a steel mill.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of times we're all, you're part of modeling is always selective compression where you pick, okay, I'm going to model J. Edgar Thompson works, but to model the whole thing in its entirety, you would need to like rent a floor of one of Trump's mansions or something. I don't know. Or maybe Trump rent the penthouse of Trump Towers to have enough space to model that. But Bob, I mean, comes as close to that as anybody I've ever seen, where there's not much selective compression, and his basically entire layout is a working model of that plant that he chose. So it is pretty incredible to see what he was able to accomplish in HO scale with that. But yeah, I could not agree more. If you get a chance, try to find some of Bob's stuff that he has posted in the past on the Iron City page. It's definitely worth taking a look at.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even to the point where Bob has the right cars that were parked that day in the lot from the pictures that he uses as references. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, there's a shift manager for second shift. He just parked, and there's the
Yeah.
car. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, there's his 69 old or 68 olds in the parking. It's amazing.
All right, well, go ahead and get us started on our report tonight, Brad. I have Joe Zanowski. He is posting that he's doing his mock-up for his layout, and I just thought everyone should maybe, if you're new, take a look what the Joe is doing. He's snapping all his Kato together. He's using just some folding tables, and he's just laying out the layout where he thinks it might look like, and kind of just doing a test run and not gluing anything down, not making a permanent structure, just snapping everything together and going, okay, this is what this looks like. This is how long this should be. And his quote is just trying to figure out a good layout. And I'm like, that's a secret, maybe, Brad, to T-TRAK, is that you can do things like this, lay it all out, not have to worry about gluing anything down, wiring anything, and then come back and then making this a permanent layout in the future. So, Joe, thank you for sharing that with us. And I look forward to seeing where this layout's going to go. It looks great so far.
Yeah, I look forward to that too, and kudos to Joe for doing that. And that is, Pat, you hit the nail on the head. That to me, that is maybe the biggest. I mean, there are many advantages to using Unitrack, but the biggest advantage for me personally, and I did this when I was building the parts of the North Bend that I have completed. It's like you mentioned with that roadbed, the track for N scale, you can run trains on it before you have it secured in place. You could just lay it out and you could test run for months on it if you want to make sure it's not going to be any problem. And if something doesn't work right, it's easy to take it apart and snap a different configuration back together that runs more reliably. So that is an advantage of Unitrack for sure, especially if you're in a hurry to get things done like I was. Like if I can't get to the point where I can at least run trains on part of my layout, I get bored with it and I start to lose interest. So that was a nice feature for me. I could lay some track out and then have trains running, and then when I was good and ready to go build the next section, I could. But yeah, that was a neat thing that he did, and we wish you the best as you progress through the build on that layout. Look forward to seeing what he ends up building there. So yeah, that was a good one, Pat.
Okay, Brad, what's your second one tonight?
Well, speaking of layouts in progress, our good friend and former yard master and longtime Iron City member, Chuck Rockwell down in Florida, posted a photo dump of his progress. I knew Chuck was working on his layout, but I had no idea how much he had done. He's really building an empire. It's not a basement empire, it's a barn empire. Chuck doesn't mess around. When he goes to build something, he builds a whole new building.
Yeah.
He's got a multi-deck layout. It looks like I'm seeing 3 decks, I think. and just an expansive mainline run that he's got for this thing. So yeah, it's always good. Like he always, every few months or so, he'll share progress of one section. But in these photos, Chuck gave us basically like an overview of his entire layout, which, as I mentioned, is very extensive, and that's gonna be a really cool layout. It looks like, I've seen Chuck run really long trains. It looks like he's going to have something in a way similar to what Todd Treaster has, where you can run basically prototype length trains over the length of a long main line, and just really anxious to keep seeing Chuck's progress. And I think we have to make a trip down there sometime, Pat.
Absolutely.
I believe I haven't completely fact checked this yet, Pat, but there's a rumor going around that Chuck said if we ever do come down, he'll let us sleep in his house, and he and his family they'll sleep in a tent or something. Just kidding, Chuck. Just kidding. Yeah, it would be great to go down and see that in person, especially after seeing these great shots that he was kind enough to share with us here.
And I believe Chuck has been on a few times with us and shared a little bit of insight about what he had to do to get, because his second big master layout because of a move that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of nice to see. Well, I tell you what it does. It makes me realize I might be the slowest model railroader in the face of the earth because some of these guys, it's like, I want to redo this. And I say that, and 2 years later it happens. They say it, and 6 weeks later it's already done.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he hasn't, I don't know, what's it been? Maybe 2 years, 3 maybe, since he moved. I don't even know if it's that long since he moved to that new location. But man, he has got a lot done.
Yeah.
And I mean, basically just starting from a completely blank, just a brand new building. I mean, he had the building built when they moved to their new property. So he started from nothing, and he has got a lot done, and it looks really, really good. So, yes, hopefully someday when we're retired or not as busy as we are now, we can make a trip down there to actually see it in person, because it looks really cool.
Okay, Brad, for my third one tonight, I've got Brian Skarlarski.
You like those difficult to pronounce names.
Now he's doing the opposite of Joe. He's doing 55 code. And what's funny is I thought these were great to put comparisons. It says, I'm getting older and my eyes are not perfect, along with the nerves issued with some of these fingers. T-TRAK keeps calling, but he's using 55 and it looks really good. He's doing a great job. Now he's a little farther along. Joe is just doing the templates and trying to figure out if this is what I want. Brian has actually got it going. He's got buildings. He's got his foam board down. He's got his industries kind of plotted out here on the one section. Let me see what else he has here. Looks like he might have a turntable. Let me double check that. No, not a turntable. I'm sorry. He has another switch that he's going into another industry. He's got a really nice, looks like train station he's built.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great. And he's running trains at the same time. So I would say, and he's got the chalk marks or the black marker out there, and he's got everything marked where they're going to go, where the buildings are going. So he's already measured all this out, and he's got a big level in the middle of the picture. So he's on his way. And
I do have to admit, Pat, I absolutely love T-TRAK, but whenever I see some really nice track work with that Code 55, it does. I mean, you have to admit, that stuff really looks good. You can make T-TRAK look really good too, but as far as the rail height and the tie spacing and everything of that Code 55, it just looks really good. That's all I could say about it. And so hats off to Brian there. That's don't get discouraged, because it is, as I was mentioning before, it is more work to get the flex track up and running. It's much easier with T-TRAK, but you can't argue with the results. I think what he has there looks really good. His curves appear to be nice and smooth, and the track joints look like they're good and seamless. So hats off to you, Brian, and don't be shy about continuing to share as you progress further along that journey. It's looking really good.
Okay, Brad, what's your fourth one tonight?
Okay, the last one I wanted to talk about was actually a post I made, but I was hoping when I made it that our good friend from down under, from Brisbane, Australia, Marty Jenkins, would comment on it. I bought a Pi Sprog DCC command station from him. It's actually a command station and computer all in one. And I got that from him with the idea that I knew that it had the capability to connect LCC, layout command control components, to, because that's been one of the areas of a railroad, one of the rabbit holes that I tend to fall down a lot. My layout would probably be done right now, Pat, if it wasn't for all these side these side things I do. But layout command control to me has the potential to be a very, very big part of the future of this hobby if it becomes mainstream. And the only way it's going to become mainstream is if people start working with it, and more manufacturers see more demand for it, and we get more manufacturers competing and bringing out new stuff for it. It kind of reminds me of the early days of DCC, before anybody really knew exactly, who was going to be building the stuff and what kind of stuff we were going to have. And, you can see how far that's come since it first started in the early to mid 90s. So I just want to be part of this whole thing with LCC and see where it goes. At bare minimum right now, it can be a really good way if you have lots of lighting and maybe some animation, signaling, detection. If you can set up an LCC network, it takes all of that load off of your command station, and your command station can just be dedicated to running your trains. And whether there's a need for that right now isn't the point. Like with my current setup on the North Penn, I'm able to run all my signaling and detection with just the command station. But I see in the future the possibility of having a lot more stuff, like stuff that we can't even imagine right now, I think, Pat,
Right.
coming through this more robust CAN bus. They call it a CAN bus. It's basically similar to the systems that are in cars today run off CAN buses, so that all of the sensors and everything else on your car can talk to each other. A layout command control system can work similarly to that, with these nodes that, once you get them programmed, are autonomous. Each node basically can communicate with any other node, send information, receive information. So once you get it set up, it's basically self-running, and you only really need, my understanding, and my understanding is very limited at this point. That's why I was hoping Marty would chime in, because he's further along in the process than I am. But my understanding is, once you get these nodes programmed, they work on their own, and you don't even need to have them connected to a computer. But that brings me back to the advantage of why I chose the Pi Sprog to do my kind of experimentation with. It's a computer and command station in one compact unit that you can literally hold in the palm of your hand, Pat. So, I usually, for my test loop, set up a loop of T-TRAK, which of course is portable. So it's nice to have this little command station that I can move around with it if I need to. So that's the post that I wanted to share. And Marty did share a couple comments of what he's doing with the Pi Sprog and LCC. And Pat, rumor has it there may be an entire episode of a podcast in our near future with, talking with Marty and possibly some other people about layout command control and the Pi Sprog. So that was the one I wanted to share, and that's just something I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes in the future.
Yeah, I think that's something that really needs to be investigated and talked about, and the how-to of it. Like, okay, how does this all work? I'm gonna. Why would I use this for my layout? And what advantages does it give me? So yeah, I'm already writing the questions down for you to stamp for approval, so we can do another podcast.
Just spitballing off the top of my head, Pat. One of the things I can think of for you like, I know this isn't part of your West Penn Panhandle lab, but your module that has that diner on it with Woodland Scenic's lighting system,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you can use LCC to activate that, and you can probably set it up once you get the programming down. You could possibly, make it so that you're starting off like we did with our joint ops video. We started it off in the very early morning on your layout. You could potentially have that so LCC says, okay, this diner or whatever isn't open yet. And
Right.
and when the timing is right, the LCC turns on the lighting effects to whatever industry you have. Like with Todd's steel mill, it could turn off and make some of those LEDs blink and flicker and make it look like there's steel making going on at one time, and then maybe another time there's not. And that's just scratching the surface. That's, like I said, me just spitballing. But I
Right.
think that's what that's going to open up the doors for things like that to be able to happen in the future. So it's an exciting thing. It's still pretty new, I think, and hopefully it'll take off, and hopefully we can help people, develop some more interest in this and get this going. So
All right,
that was
Brad.
my second one. Yeah. Yep.
Excellent. So Brad and I are going to grab our helmets and our safety goggles so we can get into the steel mill talk. And we'll be back right after this with episode 13, Steel Mill Model. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We have a great show for you this evening. This is episode 13, Steel Mill Modeling. Tonight, we're really hoping to get in the nuts and bolts of how to run operations on a steel mill, some of the customers that you might have that the steel is produced to and sent, and also some yard work and some internal modeling of railroads with inside the mill. And we have a great group of guys tonight to talk about steel mill modeling. All these guys have mills on their layouts or have customers that they use for steel after the actual product. So I'm going to pass over to Brad this evening, and Brad's going to introduce everybody.
Hey, thank you, Pat. Yeah, welcome everybody to episode 13 of season 2 already. Man, the episodes are just flying by here for us, aren't they, Pat? We're getting a pretty good sized library of past episodes build up. But
absolutely, and a lot of people have been asking for in detail topics, and so steel milling was one of them. And we got some good millers in here tonight. We also have some guys that we have one of our members, Bob, that's 87 years old, did not want to try to even start podcasting at 87, but he gave me some really good notes tonight that I'm going to try to use as references when we're talking about milling and some of the things that he did with his homestead layout.
Yeah, that layout is pretty spectacular, isn't it? So, but hope you're listening to us, Bob, even if you don't want to take the plunge and join in. But we do have some really good guests here, and let's go right ahead and get to introducing our, I guess they're steel mill yard masters. Is that accurate, Pat?
We could call them steel mill yard masters. Yeah, sure.
All right. All right. First of all the way from Burnham, Pennsylvania, we have a good friend and a regular member who has his own what do we call it? His own segment on the he and Uncle Dave Abeleys do the Office Car Special podcast for us. So we have Todd Treaster from Burnham. Todd, welcome. It's always good to talk to you.
It's always good to be here.
Agreed with you, my friend. And also from Baden, Pennsylvania, we have another regular member of the Iron City cast and also the Iron City historian, Richard Shirey from Baden. Richard, always good to have you with us as well.
Yes, always good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And then I believe we have a first-time participant from Washington, Pennsylvania. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he has some special expertise on steel mills because I believe he actually worked in a steel mill. So from Washington, PA, we have Joe Grazoulis with us. Joe, welcome, and we're really glad to have you here with us for the first time on the Iron City Roundhouse Report.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yep, and thank you. And then also, all the way from Plano, Texas, steel mill modeling all the way down in Plano, Texas. If you've ever seen one of this guy's YouTube videos, that's usually his
his tag sign, I guess. From Plano, we have one of the guys who goes way back to the beginning of Iron City with us. In fact, it was his website that Pat and I, kind of without realizing we were doing it, kind of completely hijacked him. And when we realized what idiots we were being, we decided that we better start another page. So that's how Iron City came about. But again, all the way from Plano, Texas, we have our good friend and longtime Iron City guy, Steve McCune. Steve, welcome. And it's really great to hear your voice again tonight, my friend.
Hey guys, it's really great to hear you all too, because I haven't been really motivated to work on the layout in the last couple months, but starting to get back into it. So really great to be with you all. And, that time we were, down there live Union Railroad with you, Brad, that was really, really cool seeing that, and just glad to be part of this with you all.
Yeah, a lot of good memories from that day. That was the
100%.
that was a big week for me. It was the first time I met you in person. It was the
Yes.
first time I met Pat in person that week, and it was
Yep.
also the first time I met Richard. I went to Richard's house, I think the day before, Steve, we
Yeah.
met up in Railfan Union.
Yeah,
So,
that
yeah, that
was
was
really, really cool. Yeah.
yeah, it was awesome. So, yes, welcome to you, and that is our panel tonight for steel mill modeling. So now that everyone's introduced, Pat, I know we've got some questions that we worked hard for the past week and a half coming up with these. There's a lot of so
Yeah.
let her rip, my friend.
Yeah, as we always say, these questions have been approved by Brad and stamped for his approval, and we'll go ahead and get started. Hey, we're going to start with Joe, since Joe actually worked in the mill. I have done some operations with Joe at his layout. Awesome HO layout. Joe, what are some basic principles? If we're getting started, someone's got a plain sheet of plywood. What are some basic principles of steel milling and railroad operations that you think would be a great starter?
Well, the first thing is to really consider what all you want to actually model. I mean, everybody wants to have a blast furnace. Everybody wants to have, an open hearth or an electric arc furnace, but it really boils down to understanding the product flow for what you want to model. Once you have that figured out, everything else just kind of falls into place after that. So your modeling is really moving products from one facility to the next when you're modeling inside the mill. So I think that's really the critical thing of it. I know when I designed it for my layout, I had a certain set of products that I wanted to make, and then I had kind of went backwards from there. I knew I was going to have a blast furnace, and then I knew I had, wanted to make pipe and rail and some flat roll products. And then I had to figure out, well, what do I need to have in between there? And then everything flowed from there.
Okay, Steve, on your layout, what are some things you think are some basic needs or some basic ideas that if I'm brand new to the hobby and I wanted to do mill modeling, what are some things that, Steve, that you think we would try to need here?
Yeah, I think that when you look at it with the blast furnace is always like a very striking structure when you look at it. So you know that the hot metal comes out of it. So the raw materials that are fed into that structure. So you're going to have you know ore and Walthers makes such a fantastic kit both in HO and N. So it's kind of the start of the raw material process where you get the ore comes into that type of a structure. It's an amazing structure, and I've been able to purchase them already assembled with a little bit of modification to get them into place. But I think it starts with the blast furnace, and then it flows from there. It flows into, you know, all the other processes that, like, what I have on my layout is, the raw material, comes into the blast furnace, and then it goes to the Edgar Thompson for, you know, rolling into slabs with all the additives that are added to it.
And, Steve, I think you've also sold a few blast furnaces, at least one that I know of.
What's crazy, Brad, yes, I have. So I've had several through the years that I've actually purchased and sold where it's such a delicate structure. It's the Walther's best kit they've ever done. It's so delicate. And to actually, to purchase it and it arrives undamaged and then to ship it to somebody and you check in with them and, hey, it arrived okay. It's like really a relief. It's
Yeah.
It's I've never built a structure. It's would be super difficult to build. You'd have to be very patient, but it is
Yeah.
the cornerstone. It is the centerpiece of my layout. I mean, when you walk into the training room and you see it, you know where you are.
I only bring that up because I have one of them that used to be yours.
That I sent you. Oh my God.
Yeah, you
I
did.
forget all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yep, you
And,
did.
and what's cool about for everybody that's listening, so I sold a structure that DJ from DJ's Trains was a rolling mill that he built, which is super fantastic. It was weathered and had these uneven weathered, sightings of the structure that if you look at, Google, he modeled that part of that structure like exact. And Brad, I sold it to you, and then
Mhm.
after like a year or two, you sold it back to me, and it's a centerpiece. It's right next to the blast furnace. It looks fantastic, and thanks for that because that really makes the layout pop.
Yeah, it's the postmaster at the
Oh my
Jersey
God.
Shore post office the one time said, I took something in that I had sold to there for a while. It seemed like every 2 weeks, Steve and I were either buying or
That's
selling something
true.
from each other, and he said, "I'm pretty sure I've seen this address before." I'm like, "Yeah, that was probably from me. I've sent a lot of stuff to my house."
It was really cool that all that happened because it really that's there's a long story why I went from steel mill modeling to modeling the clinch field. That's a whole nother, segment, but
Mhm.
to have that structure back on the layout, DJ, a lot of you all know who he is and what he's done, but it's a fantastic rolling mill. It's got these uneven sides and it's weathered. And when I first met him and I went to his house, it wasn't on his layout. It was off to the side on a little shelf, and I'm like, I wanted to ask him if he wanted to sell it, but I couldn't like bring myself to do that.
Yeah. Well, that is a very special structure, especially in light of what we're talking about tonight, because if you've ever seen that particular mill that's part of the Edgar Thomson plant, DJ absolutely nailed it,
It
and it
looks
is.
exactly like it.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. So, yeah, yep. And that's one of the cool things about steel mill modeling. Most people, as you mentioned, Steve, think of the blast furnace,
Yeah.
and that is a very important part of the process for certain. But there are many, many other types of mills, and like up in Irwin, they have the Irwin rolling mill. That's just rolling mills, I believe, up there. And then of course you've got
That's Irvin,
the
Brad.
Clairton. What's that?
Irvin.
Irvin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Irvin.
Did I say Irwin?
You
Sorry,
made
yeah,
the mistake so many people
Yeah.
make.
You're
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Irwin's
Tha
not too far away.
Yeah,
So
thank you, Joe.
I worked in Irvin for about 4 years right out of college.
Really?
I worked on the
Yeah.
pickle lines up there. I was in maintenance for about 3 years, then in production for a year.
Wow.
So I know every mill that's in that building and where it is, and yeah, I'm very, very familiar with that building. And it is all, I don't want to say rolling mills, but it's all finishing facilities.
Yeah.
Have up there. So they get slabs in from ET, roll them
Yep.
at the hot mill to make hot band coils. Sometimes they'll sell those. Sometimes they'll go to the next facility, and then the next facility being pickling, which is where I work. And then from there, sometimes we sell them. Sometimes it goes to the cold mill. Then sometimes they sell that. Sometimes it goes through annealing, and then they got, was it 3 different annealing facilities? And there's a temper mill, and there's a couple galvanized lines there. And then in addition to that, for Mon Valley Works, they have a plant out in Fairless Hills, PA, out there near Philly, that there's a galvanized line out there as well that they'll ship stuff to be processed. And that's something I probably should have mentioned earlier as well, is you don't have to have the entire steel mill in one little section of the layout.
Right.
For example, what I have on my layout, I have a coke plant on one layer. It's done on my original part of the layout, but the actual steel mill is on the second level of the layout. So, and a lot of plants, they'll do that, especially in the modern era, since so many things have been sold and bought and shut down, and you got skeleton facilities of each plant out there nowadays. So, you don't have to have everything right in the same, even the same view or same operational view of the layout. You can have different facilities in different places.
Yeah, that's the point I wanted to circle back to, Joe, because you did kind of say that in your opening statement, that you have to decide what kind of steel mill you want to model, because there are different types, and it's completely legitimate to have, say, a rolling mill visible on your layout, and then have other parts, the blast furnace off the layout, and you bring materials in from the blast furnace to the mill, the rolling mill. It all depends on what you have space for and what type of operation you want to model. If you really want to go crazy, you can do like our friend Bob did that Pat mentioned. He's got it all on his layout, I believe. I mean,
it's everything. Yeah.
Hey,
It's
quick question for Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like at Irvin, what percentage of coils that are rejected? Because I know this, I modeled this in my operation, go back to ET as scrap. Would you say, like, so what percentage of rejected coils come out of Irvin that go back to ET as scrap? Because I model that.
So that's a funny question. A lot of the stuff goes back to Tube City to be processed.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah,
So
okay.
so they turn everything. Well, if you've ever seen the movie Christine, at the end there, you see the cube. They turn everything into cubes, and then they'll send
Okay.
that to ET,
Okay,
and it goes into the BOP.
Okay.
Like a separate dump into the BOP before they do a heat. I don't know that they send coils directly back down there. I think a lot of them end up going to Tube City to be cut up.
Cut up. Okay, cool. So,
That's
because
awesome.
I've modeled where I have like rejected coils from Irvin sitting at Duquesne class to go to ET on a current train. I haven't actually moved the train in months, which is weird, but because I've been doing other with personal stuff. But that was one of the things I was going to model, was like running Gary Railway gondolas that Ben Bear custom painted for me with rejected coils from Irvin going to ET. So that's interesting.
Hey,
Yeah.
Pat, just so you know, I just downloaded an Ooga horn there for.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting stuff for sure. And are you
So
Joe? Are you sure I didn't say Irvin?
Yeah, you said Irwin.
Did you forget who? Joe? Did you forget who edits this podcast? Are you sure I didn't say Irvin? Go ahead,
Hey,
Pat,
guys,
sorry.
so let me go to Todd. And Todd, tell us a little bit about your mill and what pieces you have on your layout.
Well, my mill's it's just small, but I model the ET plant because I used to go by it every day on the train. I've been on all sides of it around the horn there, but I have the blast furnace, of course, that's your main focus, and then I have the electric furnace on one end, and I have the rolling mill on the other end, which I don't even think they do anything there. That building's all abandoned now, I think. I don't think they do anything there, right?
They do some slab. I don't know. I don't remember exactly which building was the rolling mill, but I know one of those buildings they do slab processing. So they'll like clean up slabs if there's some issue with them. They'll cut off damage and whatnot.
Okay, so that must be the one at the east end of the plant, then towards Pitcairn, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, it's kind of closer to the road, if I remember correctly.
I believe it is. Yeah. And then the other end of it's where the furnace is. They must get recycled steel there, and that because I see gondolas out the gazoo there with scrap in it to go in there.
Well, so the way it's set up is the two blast furnaces there make the hot iron, and then the hot iron goes obviously into your bottle cars. That goes to the basic oxygen furnace. The basic oxygen furnace will take the hot iron, and then they dump scrap in with the hot iron, and they inject oxygen into
mix it.
Yeah, it's not to mix it. It burns the carbon off.
Yeah,
The real mystique of steel is that steel is just really low carbon iron. So they use the lance in there, and they push that oxygen in at a really high rate of speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I've seen it, and it is loud.
Yeah.
So you get scrap mixed in there at that point, and then after that, they'll potentially run it through either a vacuum degasser or an LMF. The vacuum degasser essentially like sucks the steel up into a overhead device that does some additional processing to remove even more oxygen. So or not oxygen, carbon. So super low carbon steel with that process. The LMF, they'll put it in essentially like an electric arc furnace to keep it hot, and they'll mix in different alloys. So if you're looking for a specific mix of steel, they'll run it into there. Then after that, then you run it into the dual strand caster, and the caster starts out as kind of like a gigantic bathtub, and then they have 2 drain plugs, one on each side, and that's for each strand. And then you have a whole myriad of things that can happen there. They have issues with what's called intermix. So you'll have like one grade of steel that's already in the bathtub, and then you pour something on top of it, and you have, a slab or two that maybe isn't the same of either end of that, so some customers love those because they can get them for cheap.
Right. Yeah, that's why I did what I did. But operation wise, it's just going to be a local in delivering, your scrap and and what have you in your gondolas, and then once they're emptied, the local come in and pick the empties up and bring more loads in. That's all I'm going to do with that, because you don't have enough room. Even the size of my layout, as big as it is, I don't have enough room for a giant steel mill to shift cars and everything. So basically, all the equipment that's going to be there's, the ET engine. There's a couple PLE engines, and of course, I got the Union Railroad stuff there. But
yeah. Well, one thing to remember, Todd, modern steel mills do a lot of product moves inside of the buildings.
Right. So you don't have a lot of external, things going on. But I go by the ET plant. It's huge to model the ET plant. I think Steve does a good job with it, and I've seen your part of it too in HO. But to do a real big, nice steel mill, it would take up just about all your basement.
Easily, yeah.
To do it correctly. So it's not as big as I'd like it to be, but it is what it is. And, you try to condense everything you can. But I just put 100 LEDs in my blast furnace.
Oh, man.
That looks great. I've seen pictures of what you shared. And
yeah. And there's probably 50 in the electric furnace. There's probably 50 LEDs in that, maybe more.
Can't you just add on to your basement?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. Sure. That'd be great. I'll build another house.
Let me get Richard in the conversation a little bit tonight. Richard, I know that you model just the finished product for the Long Valley has a customer that's receiving steel, but can you talk to us a little bit about maybe just some basics that, since you worked your whole life in the Pittsburgh area and worked with different trucking outfits and everything, what are some basic things you think, if I'm building a mill, maybe I should think about?
Yeah, Joe bring up an excellent point that if you're going to model a steel mill, steel industry, you kind of need to think about what is the finished products that your mill is going to produce, or what is the finished product. Because like an example, Shenango down there they used to be on Neville Island, they produced pig iron, they called them pigs. They look like gold bars. And that's all it was pig iron. And they would sell that to places like Sharon Steel that was actually using electric furnaces, and they were melting scrap, and they'd throw the pig in with the scrap just to kind of, rejuvenate the metal. So that's kind of one end of it. Another end of it is J&L, LTV, L Equipment Works. It used to be across the river from me. They were fully integrated mill. They would receive the raw material, iron ore, coal. They had their own coke operation, limestone, and they had a couple blast furnaces over there. And then from the blast furnaces, like Joe mentioned, the steel would move to the BOF. They convert that into, the iron would move to the BOF. They convert that into steel. And then they had the various rolling mills where, not only did J&L produce sheet steel, they produced nails, they produced pipe, and they produce beams, different structural shapes, angle. And that's like you mentioned on the Long Valley, I have Vulcan Manufacturing. They're a structural steel. So they receive beams, angles, sheet from various steel mills like, U.S. Steel, J&L Steel, and they create the structural steel shapes to build buildings. So it's a couple of things to think about. Another example is Armco. here in Ambridge, Armco used to be seamless pipe. So all they did was receive billets, and they had a furnace to heat those up and then pierce them to create a piece of pipe. There was no blast furnace at Armco. Those are some examples of different mills in this area. I know over in Cleveland, you had the old J&L and the Republic Steel, which became LTV East and LTV West. LTV West, the old J&L, they had blast furnaces, but LTV East, the old Republic, they had the open hearth furnaces. So there's a couple different examples there. And I know Joe had mentioned also, and it's true, you had like the tin works over at Aliquippa, where that sheet steel was actually coated with tin, and then those coils were sent to Crown Cork and Seal down in Winchester, Virginia. And if you ever had a can of Campbell's soup, back in the 90s before J&L closed, that's where that metal was coming from. Crown Cork and Seal was producing the tin cans for Campbell's soup.
And Richard, you mentioned that tin. Didn't you tell me one time that when you were a truck driver, didn't you haul stuff in and out of that plant, or was that a different plant that I'm thinking?
Yes, no, that was the tin mill over at J&L 145 door. And those coils, they were actually put on pallets. We always called that eye to the sky because they were strapped to pallets. And we took them down there to Crown Cork and Seal in Winchester, Virginia. And they had a machine down there. They called it an upsetter, that they would actually pick up the pellet and it would turn at 90 degrees to put it onto their line. And, the coil would unwind, and they had the stamping machines that would, stamp out the lids and, stamp out the actual cans for Campbell's soup.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Another place like Washington Steel, their steel, and Joe mentioned it, there's all kind of different grades of steel. The steel that Washington Steel was making down there in Canonsburg actually went to White Westinghouse. They were using that to make washing machines, dryers, refrigerators, etc. Weirton Steel, we used to haul single coils out of Weirton Steel. Those were the big 50,000-pound single coils, up to Fisher Body up there in West Mifflin that was right beside the Irvin Works. And again, it was just because, the Irvin Works makes coils. I hauled coils out of the Irvin Works, but it was just a different type of steel Fisher Body wanted, different makeup.
Well, there's a story about that. First off, Irvin Works actually has the second oldest, at least as of like the mid 2000s, the second oldest operating hot mill in the Northern Hemisphere. The oldest one is in Siberia, or at least, this data comes from the mid 2000s. So maybe that one shut down. And that's a detriment to Irvin because they can only make small coils because of how that hot mill's set up. But the story goes that Irvin was originally built because of the Fisher Body plant there. And at one point in the 80s, there was an argument between the plant manager at Irvin and the plant manager of Fisher Body. So Fisher Body said, well, forget it. We're not getting stuff from you anymore. And then they went somewhere else. So that's a funny story for that.
Pat, I have just a quick comment and then a follow-up question that relates to this. First of all, Richard, I know you've been at a lot of steel mills, but I'm assuming you saved the most impressive steel mill you've ever seen for last, which would be Jersey Shore Steel in Avis, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
And there's an interesting story behind how Richard was up here last summer, and we did some rail fanning of the former Beech Creek. Then after that, it was New York Central Railroad, and the Beech Creek's main shops, and later the New York Central's main shops for their their invasion into the coal fields of Pennsylvania was right there in Avis. And the old car shop of the Beech Creek, then New York Central, when they started winding down the coal hauling out of the Clearfield cluster, that Jersey Shore Steel bought that and set up an electric arc mill, I guess it would be. And I know how that started and what they do. They had this huge yard for all these coal trains. The New York Central, at the height of the Clearfield
soft coal mining boom was hauling 30, 35 trains a day, loaded coal train. Now, they were smaller, obviously, than the coal trains, smaller cars and shorter trains, but 30 to 35 loaded coal trains a day were coming through here. So they had a big coal marshaling yard there in Avis, plus they had all their engine shops there. But when that started to wind down and they didn't need that yard capacity anymore, Mr. Schultz, Charles Schultz, not the guy who does peanuts, but he was the man who started Jersey Shore Steel. And basically what they did is they started ripping up the rails because they didn't need this huge yard anymore, and they melted them down to create angle iron. And I know they still do a variation of that today. Now, obviously, they've long since used up all of they had a ready supply of rails right next door to them when they first started, but now they import rails from all over those. But my question for you guys, and I don't know the answer to this for sure, but is that basically what electric mills do? They melt down steel that's already made and change it into a different, like, for instance, that mill started by taking railroad rails and turning them into angle iron. Is that, or is there something else that electric mills do as well? I just don't know.
Yeah, it
That-
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one thing, Brad. Like Nucor Steel down in Darlington, South Carolina, exactly like what you said. They receive a lot of old rail and they melt it down, and they ship out, structural. They don't do beams because the majority of beams are rolled, but they'll do like angle things like that. The smaller stuff, and that's where it's coming from is scrap steel, and a lot of the stuff that Nucor received was old rail. It, there's various smaller places around that do exactly the same. Well, like I said, Sharon Steel, they had an electric furnace up there, and so they were receiving scrap steel. There used to be a place above Beaver Falls called Laura Brothers. They would shred automobiles, and those shredded automobiles would go up to Sharon Steel. They'd put that into their electric furnace along with the pegs that they got from Shenango on Neville Island to produce, and they were making sheet steel, like
Yeah. When Joe said about the oldest plant right here in Burnham, where I live, a plant was started in 1795.
Wow.
And it's still here today. It's called the Standard Steel. They make railroad wheels and axles. And that's what they do. They have two big electric furnaces down here, and they melt scrap, and make railroad wheels and axles out of it.
And Todd, thanks to your contribution to the microtrains version of those.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yep, no problem. That's a whole cool story behind that. We won't get into it tonight, but yeah, the Standard Steel's been here for years. I mean, I could look out my back window here and see the plant down here, and now it's owned by Nippon Steel.
Yeah,
they bought it, and the owners have actually been here to see my layout, the Japanese, but
that's awesome.
They've been down here, like I said, since 1795,
so cool.
and there's got to be 150 scrap trucks a day.
Wow.
Come in here. I mean, they just pound these roads to pieces. And there's two scrap yards here. There's one here in Burnham, and there's one down the road from me down Maitland Way, and the Juniata Valley services it.
So,
and here the other week, they brought 27 boxcars loaded with wheels out.
So not only by rail, but by truck too, a lot of scrap arrive there.
Yes, yeah. The Juniata Valley brings a lot of scrap in, and they actually have a couple gondola cars that's owned by Krentzman Steel. They bought these high side gondolas, and they have 4 or 5 of them here that are trapped here. The Juniata Valley takes them to Maitland. They load them full of scrap. They bring them in to Lewistown, and the next day they're out here at the Standard being unloaded.
What railroad do they arrive from?
Norfolk Southern, but
Gotcha.
Norfolk Southern's locals comes down from Altoona and brings their cars in here.
Okay.
And that's my simulation on my layout too. The local comes out of Enola instead of Altoona and goes to Lewistown, delivers scrap cars and box cars to be loaded with railroad wheels, and that's how they do them. Now they've been sending axles to Mexico.
Oh,
they've been putting them in gondolas.
Okay, guys, man, that's a packed episode. So we're going to have to break this into 2 parts, Brad. And I think this will be part one, and we'll have a part two on the following episode. So this will be 13 and 14. And we'll be back right after this to have Brad and I's final thoughts. Welcome back, everybody. Wow, Brad, I know how to make steel now.
You have a mini mill set up in your backyard now?
Yeah, man. I was like, I had my the big apron they wear, the fire retardant apron, and the prongs to hold the rivets, and man, we got it going on back here right now.
But, yeah, we had I mean, that was a good bunch of guys to pick for this. There's a lot of, they all bring their own knowledge and expertise, I guess. Like Richard knows the history of steelmaking in Pittsburgh. Joe actually worked in a mill. Todd knows a lot because he's rail fan down there around Standard Steel a lot. And of course, Steve has read extensively and researched a lot about particularly the Mon Valley Steelworks, J. Edgar Thompson, the rolling mill, and of course the classification yard that the Union Railroad has that he models. So kind of four different perspectives all brought together there in a really good way. And it kind of felt like getting the proverbial enema with a fire hose, didn't it? There was a lot of
information.
So
yeah.
So yeah, we actually, for our fans, we actually recorded it all as one, but there's so much information that those guys shared. I think we're going to split it into two episodes. So you heard it'll be episode, as you mentioned before we signed off. The one that we're just finishing here will be episode 13, and then we'll get an episode 14 out of this, a pretty quick follow-up. But tons of good information from those guys.
And then, Brad, we talked about that we're probably going to need to have another episode just to talk about the modeling of the hobby. Maybe not in the nuts and bolts of how everything works now. But hey, look, you got this on your layout now. How are you going to move your internal railroad? How are you going to move your external railroad? How does that meet up? What cars do you use? What inventories do you have? I think the neat thing, Brad, was when Richard talked about how there's other products that I didn't think about, back in the day. Nuts and bolts, nails. These are all boxcar industries that you can move to anywhere on your layout, and anybody could accept those.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about making loads up for them, which that's probably something we should talk to Steve about in the next episode, because he has pretty neat ways of making custom loads for different types of cars. So we'll put that on the burner and let that percolate. But Pat, the other thing too, why we're going to need a third episode from this is because our good friend from New England, Fran Resch, has a lot that he wants to share as well. And
that's right.
We're able to get him in on this one. So hopefully for episode 3, and who knows how much we know we're going to get at least 3 episodes out of steel making. There might be even more. There's just so much. The scope of the steel industry is just enormous. So I hope everybody enjoys this, and I hope breaking it up makes it a little more convenient, I guess, for people to access. But
yeah,
I enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed, even while I was doing some editing on it, just listening to all the different, like I said, all the different perspectives that those 4 guys brought to the table for us, and the vast amount of knowledge they had. It was really cool.
Absolutely. Okay, Brad, if they need to get a hold of us, or anybody that they heard tonight, everybody that you heard tonight is a member of the Iron City N-Scale page, and that's on our Facebook. And man, we hit 3,000, Brad. I'm so happy about that. Not in the number as much as I feel like that we are now like kind of like made it into, hey, that page is legit. You know what I mean? Like the people actually come on there, they learn things, they can share ideas, they can be part of our different shows, they can be part of our contest. So there's all these ways to interact with us as members. We got members in New Zealand, we have members in Alaska. They're everywhere. And just to really appreciate everybody coming on the page, because the page has grown, the podcast has grown, and the two really work well together, I believe.
Yep, I agree. The two go hand in hand. And that's really gratifying, honestly, because that's really one of the big things that we wanted out of this. We wanted it to be not separate from the Iron City page, but basically like a companion to it. And
Right.
the two are kind of just feeding off one another. And the other thing about 3,000 you mentioned is it's one thing just to have a lot of people joined who don't participate, but we have some people who really participate a lot now, and there's a lot of neat stuff that's being shared, and that's appreciated. So please keep that going. And I don't know, Pat, we can edit this out if you don't, but I think we have some openings for the Station Inn now for the Altoona NCL weekend. Do we want to push that a little bit on you?
Sure. We have 3 openings right now. People had to, because of different obligations, had to not attend. So we have 3 spaces as we speak here tonight. This would be put on just a couple of days. So if you want to give me a message or Brad a message on our Facebook page, we'll be happy to tell you all about the details. I can't tell you, it is something I mark that date more than I do Christmas. I love that weekend. I love to be with all the guys. Unfortunately, the Station Inn can't hold all 3,000 of us, but it can hold a lot. And we have 3 spots, so 3 out of 1,000. Come on down. Now, something I posted, Brad, is, and I wanted to tell everybody, you won't be a stranger. You might be a stranger for 30 seconds. You'll shake our hands. Everyone will go into the inn and sit on the porch and watch that first train go by, and now you're a friend. So there are no strangers. We might just not know you as long as everybody else.
And chances are that first train will be a trash train too.
Absolutely. And then everybody can make fun of me. I think the new tradition is people will actually throw trash at me as the train goes by, because it will probably block a heritage unit going the other way.
Most likely. That's probably how it'll go. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, Pat. It's we've had guys show up before who had never been at an event with the Iron City group, and it doesn't take long for them to start feeling at home. So, anybody welcome. Anybody who's listening to this, anybody who's on the Facebook page, we have those 3 spots, and if somebody would like to hang out on the porch with us. And we go up to Todd Treaster's place on one of the night, Friday night, I guess, is when we do that. So
right,
all of that stuff, you're more than welcome, and we'd love to have you. If you would like one of those spots at the Station Inn, you can contact either one of us on Facebook. Really, I mean, it
wouldn't matter. Yeah,
it probably makes more sense to contact Pat, since I'll just be forwarding it to him anyway. Either way, because Pat's the keeper of the spreadsheet, as far as I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brad, it's a great time. So please.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, if they want to hear us, they can hear us at Apple Podcast, YouTube, Podbeam, Spotify, Amazon Music, Player FM, iHeartRadio, Listen Note, Podchaser, and Boomplay. We're all there. Come listen to us. And like I said, we really appreciate our listeners. Got some great shows coming up, Brad, and I'll let you close out with maybe some little teasers of what might be coming up here in the next couple of months.
Yeah, we got quite a few things coming. Of course, this series of steel mill modeling, we're just at the beginning of it, and we know we're going to have 2 more episodes of that. I know we have something we're in the works with our good friend from Down Under. Marty Jenkins is going to be joining us, and maybe some other folks, to talk about the Pi Sprog, which is it's similar to a DCCX command station that you assemble. Marty sells those, and he's worked quite a bit with them. I'm just, as people on the page know, I barely just started scratching the surface. Marty's more advanced into that process of learning the Pi Sprog. And the thing that has me really curious about it is it has a C bus, a CAN bus on it, which means that you can use it for layout command control, LCC. So we want to talk about the Pi Sprog. We also want to talk about LCC, layout command control, and we'll just try to explore that. It's something I'd really like to start to see taken off. So we're gonna have Marty on board with us at some point for that. And then another one that we have coming up, our good friend John D.O. or John O. And I always say I probably can't pronounce his last name, people who've been around will know him as John O. or John Doe, D-O. But he is involved with T-TRAK event that takes place at the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum in Strasburg, Pennsylvania. And I don't want to give away too many details because we're going to be doing an episode with John. But as far as I know, he has the right, or he's going to be organizing a T-TRAK setup right in the museum where the trains sit on display. So if you've never been to that museum, it's definite, especially if you're a fan of the Pennsylvania or a historian of the Pennsylvania Railroad. It's a must see place. But with the added bonus now, John's going to be organizing a T-TRAK layout setup there. So we'll be having him here within the very near future. And Pat, did I forget anything?
Hey, Brad. Yeah. Also, we're going to try to get El Presidente, our new president of Ohio Valley Lines. Mike DeCinzi, we're trying to get him on. He's agreed to come on and talk to you a little bit about club layouts, how that works, the ins and outs of a good club. I mean, that club's been around for many, many decades. And
I'm looking forward to that too, because it's been a while since I've gotten to talk to Mike, and looking forward to that one.
And Mike's an OG, and he was on the episode 5 of season 1. So everyone probably has at least heard of Mike by now, and we're going to get him back on to talk about his new role as a president of a railroad club. So I think that's kind of neat. Get that inside trader, inside baseball. What's going on there, and how does that work, and what are the responsibilities and everything. So I think that's going to be a good show too, Brett.
I think so. Yeah, those that we talked about are going to get us. Once we get done with those, it'll be build up time for Altoona already, I think.
Yeah, we'll probably have to get our guys on here to do a little preview show to get to get the ball rolling. Maybe a little bonus show. So be on the lookout for that too, like we did last year.
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, Brad, you want to take us out of here?
Yes, sir. We'll do. Just a huge thanks to our good friends Steve, Richard, Todd, excuse me, and Joe. This was Joe and Steve's, I believe, first time participation with us. So thank you to them for sharing the wealth of knowledge that they have. It was very enjoyable, and hopefully everybody's looking forward to the next episodes in that series. So thanks to those guys, and most of all, thank you to all of our listeners who continue to support us in this endeavor that's a little over a year old now. So thank you for sticking with us, and we appreciate that so much. So having said that, we'll sign off for another episode of the Iron City Roundhouse Report.
They say America has lots to learn about soccer, but when it comes to celebrating, we wrote the playbook. So stock up for the tournament and all your watch party needs at Fine Wine and Good Spirits. From toasting at the tailgate with canned cocktails to yelling, "Goal!" at home with your friends and with top shelf spirits. At Fine Wine and Good Spirits, for any occasion and every reason, we've got a bottle for that. Please enjoy responsibly.
Big monthly car insurance bills are hard on your budget, but not with Hugo. Hugo breaks up your insurance bill into tiny pieces so you can pay a little bit at a time. Get a quote today and start driving insured with just 7 days of coverage. After that, pay at your own pace, like every week or even a day at a time. Hugo is car insurance that fits your budget. Stress-free. Get your car insured today at withhugo.com. That's withhugo.com.
We have always been a nation of givers, giving a hand, giving hope, giving possibility. Imagine what could happen if we all gave at the same time. Giving forth. Take the pledge and give to the causes you care about at america250.org.
All right, rail fans, that's all the steam we've got for this edition of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Until next time, keep those gauges green, your couplers connected, and may your layouts always run smoothly. Happy railroading.